Alright, so for today's video, I'm working on this Honda EU3000 generator, and the owner brought me a new carburetor for it. He tried messing with it a little bit to get it to run, and I suspect that this thing has a carburetor issue, whether or not this carburetor is dirty inside or the stepper motor at the top, because the throttle on this is all electronic. That thing might be bad. The new carburetor comes with a new one of these, but first we're going to take this old carburetor off, see what's going on with it, see if there's any issues, and of course make sure the fuel is getting into the bowl. Now, I've already done a little bit of troubleshooting on this machine. I shot some starting fluid through the carburetor and into the engine cylinder, pulled it, and I was able to get it to fire off, and it ran for about 2 seconds and then quit. So we know it's getting spark. The only other thing I've done is remove the air filter in the box. That was easy. It's just 4 of these clasps that snap it on. But now we're just going to remove the rest of the air box, and everything's 10 millimeter. This bolt came right down here, so I took that one out. And then we just have the 2 nuts that are sandwiching the carburetor and everything else together. So we'll go ahead and remove these. Both the nuts are removed. Take this PCV line off of the box. Let's see if we can get this thing off. And I'm just going to let it kind of flop to the side like that. Now we have the Honda sandwich, that's what I call it. So here's the metal and rubber gasket. Now we have the choke plate. Now this thing, you want to be a little careful pulling this off because it is going to pull the whole carburetor off with it. You'll see what I mean, but I'll go ahead and pull this paper gasket off as well. So you'll see that the throttle has this little rod that's coming out and it goes into the choke on the carburetor. We're just going to set that aside just like that. Turn off the fuel. I should have done that already, but I didn't. Oh well. And now we're just going to kind of pull this off. This thing out of the way right there. Now I just have to pull the fuel line off of the carb. That's simple enough. And then we'll remove the rest of these lines. Actually, these pink ones should come out because they're just fished into the bottom here. They're just drain lines. But this one, this harness, we're gonna have to see where this thing plugs in and figure out where to unplug that. Looks like it goes all the way back here. So we'll see. All right, so we're gonna pull the bolt off. There's fuel in there, so that's a good sign. But naturally, we're gonna inspect everything here. The owner did say he cleaned this thing out, so I am inclined to believe him. But where these carburetors can mess up is these jets are 2 pieces. So a lot of the time people will only remove the first jet. They won't remove the rest of it. So we'll see if that's the issue. Inside of there looks nice and clean. Not seeing any issues with the jet, but this one, you're supposed to be able to see through that, and I cannot. So this might be an easy fix. Let's get my other tools out. Got some tip cleaners here. Oh wow, look at that. This thing is really dirty. Hopefully this was the issue. take it over this ridged area. That'll clean it out really well. So you guys should be able to see through it now. It was completely blocked off before. Let's see if there's any other debris inside this, and it looks like there is. So now we can get one of these brushes, and we're just gonna rotate it. Did you guys see all that just come out? All right, so I got this all cleaned out. This just goes back in. So now that this part is done, I'll meet you guys back at the machine and we'll reinstall this thing. So I hope you guys can see everything okay. This is a really weird angle. So the good thing is, if this is what fixes the starting issue with this thing, we won't have to wire into this harness to get the other carburetor to work. You can just continue to use this one as is, and he can return that carburetor he bought and get his money back. My general rule of thumb is, if I can save an OEM carb, especially on a Honda, then we'll save it. You only really want to go with these aftermarket overseas carburetors if you really absolutely have to. I have not priced out a carburetor for this machine from Honda, but I would expect it's probably $100 or more. So we'll get the fuel line back on as I knock everything around, of course. Let's clamp back on. And now, go ahead and fish both these lines down here and then throw them through the holes in a second because we got to get this thing back on. So you grab your harness, you grab this end like that, put the rubber stopper through, and then the back piece goes through the rear of the bracket, and then you have the rest of the cable that's going to go right about here. So we have the paper gasket that's got to go back on. That's just going to go like that. And you guys can't see it all that well, but what I'm going to do is bring the carburetor forward just a hair, just so I can slide this rod back into the choke. There it is. Yeah, I might have to loosen up the bowl a little bit just to reroute these lines, but that's nothing I didn't plan for. So now we got the big metal gasket. Throw that back on. So now I'm gonna loosen the bottom of the bowl so we can spin that around. That'll probably do fine. Okay, everything's there. Check the choke. That's all good. There we go. Okay, so now we'll grab the air box, slide this back on. Okay, so it's all the way back now, flush against the engine. I just had to reroute the wire harness, so that I had to move kind of back here and then stuff everything back together. It was kind of a pain, but I got it. These Hondas are very particular with how they go back together, and if you have trouble putting yours together, relax, it's normal. I have trouble with them too, just like I just did. So we're just gonna stick this other PCV line back through the bottom here. Everything else is good. I don't need to show you guys that. Everything's all where it should be. Put the upper PCV line back on. One last choke check. And now I'm just gonna slide these two nuts on. We're gonna try and start it. I'm not gonna put the air filter back in because I want to basically make sure that this is going to fix this issue. And then I'll have, easier access back to everything in here. These don't need to be extremely tight, but that should be good enough. I just turned the fuel back on, so I'm gonna let the carburetor fill up a little bit, and then we'll see what we can get it to do. And now, checking the oil. Oil is nice and clean. He did say that he just changed it. So I'm happy with that. So let's see if we can get it to start. Okay, keys to on, choke is out, fuel valve is on. Not bad. So I'm happy with that, and he will be too. So I'm gonna get everything put back together, put the air filter box back on, as well as that last bolt that goes in the air box. We're gonna close the cover and see if I can get something to plug into it and just test the inverter a bit. So this thing is not the best design. It's kind of a bear to get everything back in. But I will say that all in all, this little generator is in really good condition. It is an older unit. It's probably close to 20 years old. But I never cared for these filter boxes that Honda's used. There we go. Close the door. Do that. Let's bring her outside. Everything's on. enough for me.